What's up, everyone? Eli here. As you can see, still having fucking lighting issues. I'm gonna have to buy a lamp or something soon, but it looks a little grainy on my end. Hopefully, it doesn't bother you guys. Um, I don't know. Anyways, got another CD collection video to show you guys. Same rules as always. 10 CDs out of my collection. And today, this probably isn't going to happen often, but today, all 10 CDs, just one band. Kind of funny how that worked out. And that band in question, we have Sweden's Entombed. Now, there's a lot of Entombed fans. I often like getting their their opinion, which albums they like, which ones they don't. It's pretty goddamn common. I'd say the vast majority of, I don't know if you can call them Entombed fans or just fans of the first album. Everyone likes the first album. There's almost no question, there's almost no debating that. Some people like the second album. So some people like the first two. Some people like all three, the first three. No, not all three, but some people like the first three. I'd say it's pushing it for a lot of Entombed fans to even be into that third album. Hold on, I'll be right back. Anyways, a lot of people don't even dig on that third album. I guess I'm kind of curious as to what Entombed fans like all the albums, because I'll admit there are albums here that I do not really care for. So yeah, it's kind of cool hearing what Entombed fans, where they kind of leave off, where the band lost them. So yeah, I'll kind of, as we go, I'll kind of tell you how that works for me. So obviously, first album, and by the way, I am missing one. I have the Stranger Eons EP, but I misplaced it. It's somewhere. I've shown it in a collection update, but I'm not going to be able to show it today. So no huge loss there, but I do like it. It is a kind of a cool EP. But anyways, obviously we're going to start off with the mighty Left Hand Path. This is an all-time classic death metal. It almost doesn't matter who you ask. Most top 10, all-time albums, death metal albums, 9 times out of 10, this is going to be in there, probably even in the top 5, if not top 3 for a lot of people. I like this album a lot, I'll be honest. It's not one of my personal favorite death metal albums. I think it's worthy of its praise. I think it's fantastic, but it's just not one of my personal favorites. I'm more of an American death metal guy, Finnish death metal. But Swedish death metal, I do like a bit of Dismember. Yeah, I'm not huge on Swedish death metal for some reason. But yeah, fantastic album, obviously. Recorded back in this was actually recorded in '89, released in 90? Yeah, 1990. This is the '99 Eric repress. And next we have, and I like this album, their second full-length, Clandestine. Yeah, it's so funny how many fans of the band drop off, even for this album. This came out in '91, by the way, on Eric Records. So many people love the first one, and then they just can't handle this album. I kind of get that, but I kind of don't. The only discerning factor I really get is there was a change in vocalists. And I do agree. I mean, if L.G. Petrov had done vocals on this album, it would have been better. It would have been better, no doubt. But, it didn't happen. As you know, Nick A. Anderson, drummer, stepped up into the vocals. He did an all right job. Just because he wasn't as good as LG, I don't see the point in completely writing this album off. I think the songwriting is still there. It does sound different than Left Hand Path. It doesn't sound like they were trying to just, they were still young, but it doesn't sound like they were out of ideas and just, kind of re-recording the first album. I mean, it doesn't sound like that to me. This is a 2007 Eric repress, by the way, and this version's kind of cool. It's got a double disc, and it comes with, not that it benefits me because I already have it, but it's got the live in London Monkey Puss live album, which, like I said, I've already had for years, but for those that don't, I mean, that's pretty cool. So, if I'm going to give the Left Hand Path, like a 9, I'm still going to give this an 8. I still think it's pretty damn good. I just don't think it's as good. But like I said, I don't see the point in the people that like completely write it off like, it's terrible. That's weird to me, but whatever. So yeah, I just mentioned the Monkey Puss Live in London album. Here I have it now. I don't know the details. I remember hearing always that this was a bootleg. I don't know the true story. Maybe it was a bootleg first, and then Eric put it out. But I always heard it was a bootleg from the start. So maybe someone can help me with that. How can it be a bootleg from the start if Eric put it out and Entombed were an Eric band? I think I used to know the story, and I just don't remember. So, like I said, someone can chime in there and help me out a little bit. But what can I say? I mean, it's a good live album. It's a little bit raw. It's a little bit on the noisy. This isn't like this is one of those live albums that's been completely processed and butchered up, and this is pretty raw live sound. I don't listen to it often. Yeah, I do like live albums, but it's got to be a specific live album for me to want to hear it. More than once or twice. But I liked Entombed a lot when I was like getting into death metal. I think it's fair to say I'm not overall as a whole. I'm not as into them, as I once was. My fucking camera, man, it is falling down. Sorry, guys. We're gonna fix that. So anyway, I need like a tripod or something for my fucking camera, but that's probably never gonna happen. Anyways, moving on. I am missing that first EP that they did. That would actually be really cool. What's it called? That first EP, Crawl, the Crawl EP. That would be really cool to have. I would actually be willing to. I'd be interested in buying that. If I come across it someday, I'll definitely snag it. But that's probably the only Entombed thing I have, or that I don't have, that I would want. Anyways, next I have both versions of '93's Wolverine Blues. I got the cover with the Wolverine on it. The one without Wolverine. This one has a bonus track, so it's got 10 tracks instead of 9. It's got the Out of Hand. As you can see, this one does not have it. I don't remember. And they both came out in '93, didn't they? Pretty sure. So I don't know the story on why they put out 2 versions. I just don't know. So yeah, Earache had full. I've heard people question this. I don't know, with the internet nowadays, why we need to question things. I mean, everything is pretty easy to discover. But so Earache from the start had Marvel's permission to do this, to use Wolverine and make up the Marvel logo right there. I've heard people say like, "Oh, they didn't have permission to do that." They had full permission. Even in '93, Marvel was a huge entity. Yeah, they would ruin a small company for stealing their shit. So that's not going to happen. But anyways, so this album is notable for a lot of things. It's notable for in '93, they signed to they were still licensed by Earache, but they were signed to fucking Columbia Records, major label. So '93 was the year. It was that time when that weird fucking thing was happening where major labels were signing death metal bands, Carcass, Morbid Angel, Entombed. Who else? There was only really a handful of bands. It was basically an experiment. Those albums sold well by death metal standards. They did not sell well by major label standards, and those fucking bands were dropped like yesterday's trash. Dropped without a care in the world. Odd time, but kind of an interesting piece of history. So this record is noticeable for that. It's noticeable for this logo change. It's noticeable for a huge change in the sound of the band. LG Petrov was back on vocals, but this album, I mean, it's it's you know, a lot of people call this sound death and roll, which I don't really like that term, although at the same time it's very fitting to describe the sound of this fucking album. And I could never get into this album. I even tried recently. I listened to this a couple weeks ago. I was like, every couple years I'll put it on just to see if, you know, how it's maybe I'll like it more. But I never do. I never ever do. I don't think it's a bad album. I like death metal. I don't like, you know, rock and roll sounding death metal. That doesn't work for me. So I don't dislike this album, but it just doesn't do much for me. So I don't know how you guys feel. I know people that like it. Now don't quote me on this, but I think it was there are people that say this is their favorite album. I want to say like Neil Jameson from Krieg. I want to say he likes this. I want to say this is his favorite Entombed album, and I want to say Justin Stubbs from Father Be Fouled and YouTube here and other bands. I could have sworn he's a big fan of this album too. Don't quote me on that because I could be wrong. I thought I remembered him saying that. Man, I usually don't have trouble with my camera slightly, but I'm having it today. Okay, so moving on. I thought I had these in order. I might not really have them in order. Whatever. We'll go to this one next. We'll go to Ride, Shoot Straight, and Speak the Truth. You know, if you thought Wolverine Blues was death and roll, you know, this one is a little more in that direction. This one's even a little bit less death metal sounding than Wolverine Blues. This is the last album that Nick A. Anderson would drum on, and this is also the first album, I believe, that Jorgen Sandstrom from Grave would play bass on. He would be in the band for a while. This came out in '97. It's an alright album, actually. I listened to it earlier. I never disliked it by any means, but you know, it's very rockin'. It's still pretty goddamn heavy. You know, it's still a very heavy album. It's just, you know, the death metal elements are fewer and fewer. I would say focusing more on, you know, there's more hardcore influences, even there's, you know, more thrash influences, more punk influences. You know, like I said, definitely more rock and roll, you know, influences. Still a pretty good album. If you like Wolverine Blues, I think this album, I couldn't see you hating it. If you're one of those, you know, I only like the first album or first two albums, this is probably pure trash to you. But I don't consider it, you know, that. You know, I think it's a pretty good album for what it is. Where are we going next? I might have lost order at some point, so forgive me on that shit. I think we're going to this one now. I thought I had them in order, and then anyways. And like I said, I don't have them all, so there's some holes in my collection, but I do have a lot of them. I do have most of them. So this is '98. This album right here would be considered by most, me included, to be, you know, their weakest album. And you know, I full on just don't like this album at all. Had I not bought this early on, I wouldn't own it. I would not buy this album nowadays. If I didn't have it, I wouldn't go out and buy it. You would kind of consider this like almost another major label shot. You know, this they were picked up by Roadrunner Records on this one. We got the same difference. Love the cover because I like dogs. But I mean, look at the logo. I mean, the logo is even less death metal than ever. You know, at least before they had this kind of cool fire stuff going on. But yeah, man, this album almost sounds, I mean, honestly, this album sounds more like something Clutch would do, or you know, 90s Corrosion of Conformity, which I actually like. It sounds more like that than early Entombed. And though I do, you know, I think Clutch in their early days were pretty cool, and like I said, 90s, I like 90s, you know, COC, but this album I don't like. Now, sometimes I wonder if Entombed had always played this kind of music, if I would like it, or say if this weren't Entombed, if this were just some new band, would I like it then? But I don't think so. I highly doubt it. I mean, you can't even really you almost can't even call this death and roll. This is just like a rock album. You know, it's still heavy, but it's not death metal heavy. You know, it's still, if you're gonna call it rock, yeah, it's a heavy rock album. But yeah, I don't like it. Next, and I can't remember if this came out before or after Same Difference, but we got Inferno. Let's see. I have a re-release, by the way. I have this Candlelight re-release that has a bonus disc. Clearly, I don't take this out much. Motherfucker. Sorry, guys. If I'd have known it was so hard to take out, I would have done it before. I'm ripping the slipcase, but whatever. So it looks like that. That's what it, you know, the original version looked like without the slipcase. This came out in 2003. Okay, so I'm on the right track. So yeah, this comes with a bonus track called Inferno, which has a couple, I don't know, it's got some video edits, some actual videos on there, and I don't know if it's got new songs, but it's got some songs on there that I don't recognize. So whatever, I wouldn't say it's mandatory to get this version, but that's me saying it, not you. I think getting just the regular version of Inferno would be fine. Now this album, I actually kind of like this album. This album is actually, this album's really heavy. This is a heavy motherfucker. It's kind of a, I always kind of called this like Entombed's Doom album. It's like a heavy Doom album with lots of hardcore influences, punk influences, some dirty thrash influences. I mean, this is an all-right album. It's still not real death metal sounding, but it's, you know, it's like as heavy. It's just as heavy in its own way. It's just not death metal. And there are death metal elements. Entombed always had death metal elements. You know, they would never shake them all off. I don't know if they tried to and they just couldn't quite get it out of their system, but I think this is an alright album. For later Entombed albums, this is probably my favorite. Although I do like Morning Star, and I don't have it. Morning Star is like a cool thrash album. You know, it's like a cool thrash album, almost death metal. I like Morning Star. Don't have it though, but yeah, this is a pretty cool album in its own right. Certainly not terrible. I don't listen to it often, but I mean, I do like it. So, let's see, what year was this? 2006. Entombed would release a single, and the single was called When in Sodom. And I heard that single, and I was kind of blown away. I was like, holy shit, you know, Entombed are they're kind of a death metal band again. Heavy song, you know, death metal sounding. Doesn't sound like the first two albums, but it still sounds like death metal. So I was kind of on board for that. And then this CP would come out, When in Sodom. I mean, look at that. Got that old skull again. They got the old logo. All the songs on here are heavy and, you know, pretty death metal sounding. You know, I dig it. I dig this EP. Like I said, it sounds more death metal than they have. It probably sounds more death metal than Wolverine Blues. Maybe. That's debatable, but I think so. I think it's heavier than Wolverine Blues. So I was pretty stoked. I was like, all right, man, Entombed are a death metal band again. Awesome. You know, can't wait to hear what they do next. And so came out in Candlelight Records, by the way. I don't know if I said that. So a couple years later, let's see, what is that? 2007. The next year, they would put out Serpent Saints, the 10 Amendments. And I don't like it. I don't know what the fuck happened. So you got the slipcase, which is cool. I like when slipcases actually have different covers than the CD. It's awesome. So yeah, the song does have, it's got some of the songs from the When in Sodom EP, right? It's got, doesn't it? Fuck, maybe yeah, it's got When in Sodom. It's got, sorry, I'm just looking here. Okay. All right, just When in Sodom. Okay, it's only got one song from the CP, which is clearly the best song on the album. There's some alright stuff on here. Overall, man, it's just like they go right back. This might be a little more no, I can't even say it's more aggressive than, fucking Inferno was way heavier than this. I feel like they still kind of were pushing in the death metal direction, but man, I just find this album, I just find it boring and bland. If everything from the When in Sodom EP is better than this, after this they would go and, they'd break up, they'd have that famous split up. Half the guys, or not even half the guys, it's just LG, and LG would, he would form Entombed AD, who are just as fucking uninspired sounding and boring as Entombed have ever been. And, the guys that own the rights to the name Entombed, they've been quiet, they've done nothing. They're just holding on to the name. I don't even think they're ever going to use it. They probably will, at one point they'll try to make a grand comeback, and it probably won't work, and everyone will buy the album, but they'll hate it. That's how that's probably going to go. So yeah, the only Entombed things, like I said, that I wouldn't mind having are the Crawl EP and the Morning Star album. I really actually would like to have those two. But I'm not running around frantically trying to find them. I just, when I come across them, I'll grab them, but it just hasn't ever happened, I guess. Or it's happened and I've passed them up. I'm sure I've passed by a Morning Star many times, but I didn't want it then. I kind of wouldn't mind having it now. So, anyways, like I said, Entombed are an interesting band, even if they're not one of my favorites. They're, they have a lot of history behind them. They're legends for a reason. And I like hearing what Entombed, like big, true Entombed fans, I like hearing what they have to say. I like hearing which albums they like. And anyone that likes Entombed, I like hearing, where they left off. Do you like all the albums? Do you like only the first? What do you think? So, anyway, that's all I got. That was actually kind of fun. Talking about a band with so much history and, so many, with so many opinions among fans. So, anyways, talk to me about Entombed. Say whatever you want. I'm happy to hear it. So, thanks for stopping by, and we'll talk soon. Cheers.